the work I've done to build multiple marketing plans for different library types, I feel like you ought to know a little bit about my experience and background, which includes I've done extensive work with different public libraries, uh, particularly mid-population community libraries. So libraries that have around 50,000 people within its proximate service area, in addition to museums. So some of my work includes working with local museums, area museums. In addition to my work as a dean, I started at Howard Payne University as the Dean of Libraries there, and now I'm at Campbell University out here in North Carolina, serving as the dean here. Marketing to me has always been such a fundamental part of a library that it's not enough that we're providing the things that we provide if they don't know what we're doing. And I hate it when someone says the library is the best kept secret, because we shouldn't be a best kept secret. We should be something everybody knows about. We should be the worst kept secret, because the secret should be out. So that's kind of my personal ethos, and one of the reasons why I feel so strongly that if you have a library, you should have a marketing plan. So we're going to take a look at my screen. There we go. And I have shared in the chat the link to this presentation. It is completely editable by you. I would ask that, please don't delete a slide while we're going through it, but we have some points where we're going to engage in conversation and share ideas with each other. I'm not I am a practitioner, as you are a practitioner. And so the best thing we can do is learn from each other. So we'll have a few opportunities to do that. I'm going to flip real quick to my Google Doc, which is the second thing I shared in the chat. And this is a resource list. These are my recommendations to you as you continue to explore these conversations. There's a mix here of useful, this is what, for example, San Antonio Public Library is doing. New Mexico State Library, this is a worksheet that they have that is useful. Some of these have annotations on them, so you can see what my thoughts were and how I've used it in the past. Some don't, but they're all available for you to check out and explore. I've also included at the end of the document some resources from the American Library Association. They always have really great stuff. Sometimes I find that if I use a little bit of what ALA has and a little bit of what some other libraries have, I can kind of hone in on something that then becomes useful specifically to me. So, building adaptable marketing plans for libraries. So I looked at the survey, and it looks like I've got a group who's participating today that this is not new to them. So this is good. So we're gonna step in deep with what we need to know. But just to kind of make sure we all have a baseline understanding, marketing basics, the value of marketing is that this is our way to employ what we're doing in our library mission and focusing our strategies outward. Marketing and marketing that's successful. I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. Marketing that's successful comes from a wide berth of knowledge. It is not enough. We have great practitioners within our libraries to put flyers out, to put social media blitzes out, to make everybody aware of our programming, but we need to make them aware of who we are and what makes who we are that counterpoint that they need to read more into, they need to engage into what we're doing. We need them to become owners of our library. And that's something that creating a successful marketing strategy can do. So in that regard, one of the basics I recommend to do is you really need to take a look and evaluate, what are you currently doing? How is your customer service within the library? What is the responses you're getting on any kind of surveys and feedback about how they are treated once they step in, as well as how they feel when they step away? What are we doing for patron care? What kind of engagement is the professionals who work in our library, what are they doing within the community? Are they involved in county activities? Are they involved in their local schools? Are they going to commissioner meetings? Are they going to city council meetings? Are they going and participating in faculty senate? Are they active and engaging in the academic community around them? That engagement, from the minute they step outside the library, they are seen as that librarian. That engagement will speak volumes for who you are as a library, and it's its own marketing tool. Who do you collaborate and partner with? Are you collaborating and partnering? If you are a library who is not currently doing those things, you're missing out. That's a great marketing opportunity. And then you create in those collaborations partners who then who market for you. So these are just a few basics here. Organizational buy-in. It's so critical to have the group within your organization. And we're looking at this today as a leader. And we're looking at this with the perspective of being a leader within your library. And then as such, it's incredibly important that the organization within the library believes in what you're marketing. And furthermore, leaders have leaders, and they need to be on board with how you see yourself and how you're envisioning your marketing and your marketing strategies. So keeping that in mind, we're now on slide 3. If you want to pull up the doc, and on slide 3, I have a chart there, and we're going to take a few minutes, and I'm asking 2 different questions, and I think we have enough of a group that everybody could have their own square, and there may be some squares to spare. I think that's from a TV show, but I couldn't tell you for sure. And so I'm asking 2 questions. I'm asking, 1, who is our audience? So who is it that we are driving our marketing to? And who is our hidden audience? So who is that group? Who do you suspect your hidden audience is? Who is the group that you're really pushing towards? And then who is the group who is actively also listening? Who's in the background? Who's witnessing what you're doing? So we've got students, instructors, staff. Okay. Yeah, and just like how Anonymous Llama did it, try to differentiate between who is your actual audience and then who isn't. You may want to use 2 different colors. You may want to use 2 different lines. However you feel comfortable making that work. And in academic library, students are definitely our frontline group. You know, one of the things that we did in our strategic plan at Campbell is we had a discussion about how do we want to define our user group, and how do we want to build our strategic thinking around our user group. And we really debated, do we want to say specifically students, or do we want to truly include all of those groups who are in our circle that we correlate and respond to? And what's interesting is even in listing that out, we went back later and added a few more, recognizing that we had a hidden audience. And our hidden audience, we discovered, is actually the local community. Buies Creek is where we're residing in North Carolina, and there isn't a public library in Buies Creek. And so one of our hidden audiences is the community users who engage in the things that we're doing. They're paying attention to our activities. They're asking to participate, and they are there to be connected with. This is a group that can then volunteer on our campus. We had a similar conversation at Brownwood Public Library in Central Texas, and they discovered that there was a population that was a hidden audience, that there was the two local museums nearby were following everything that the library was doing and advocating for them, and they didn't realize it. And that became a very unique collaborator for the library. And then they realized, you know, if I send them our flyers, if I send them our information, they're going to promote for us, and they're going to really cheer on what we're doing. So that worked out really well for them. So parents of early college students, online students from other institutions. Ooh, that is a good hidden audience. You never know which students from what university may be taking a look at what you're doing. I'll be honest, I like to look at what other universities are doing, and I like to engage in what I'm seeing there. And I've copied good things from other groups, or I've been envious. I saw one library once who did a putt-putt golf game in the midst of the library. And I thought, my goodness, that took a lot of work. I don't think I could do that, but man, that looks fun. I see here other government branches, community organizations, absolutely. So we've got some good stuff here. I'll do some formatting to get it all back on the slide again. I encourage you to come back and add more things if you think of more things. Don't hesitate to then take, you know, if you see something that someone else is suggesting, and kind of roll with it as, oh, I didn't think about this user group. You know, that's part of doing this exercise, is to really kind of expand our horizons on who our user groups are. I would say an audience that academic libraries may not realize is an audience is our donors, advancement, as well as our advancement officers on campus, because they are paying attention to what you're doing as a library. The same thing goes for public libraries, that those who are your funders, they are a hidden audience, and they definitely need marketing directed to them, and they need to be noticed in what you're doing. Sometimes it's helpful when you're creating marketing to include thinking about what is it that they would like to see? How would they like to see the funding being used? Would they like a thank you? That often is incredibly helpful. So yes, our alumni, absolutely. So there's always a audience you don't realize you have, and they are paying attention to what you're doing. So recognizing that a really encompassing marketing plan can often help you create and build out. I'm so sorry, I'm fighting the lawn here, guys, because, you know, that's fun. But building out that plan can kind of help sometimes reach those people that you aren't realizing that you're reaching in a more effective manner. So we're going to move to the next slide. And if you do have questions, feel free to throw them in chat. Devin, if you'll let me know when those are popping up, that would be really great.
Absolutely.
We're gonna look at, how do you start this? Several of you have asked this question, like, how do I get this going? It takes a little bit of work, and it takes finding a couple of people to put together as your team. If you are a solo librarian, I recommend finding somebody in the community who is invested in your library and wants to see you succeed. If you're a smaller library, it may be that your entire library has become the team that's going to drive this. But find a group that can become that core group that can promote your library. And these are from the research I've done, the work that I've done, the consulting, these are the steps that I find over and over again really help get these drivers going. And this comes from a focal point of human-centered design, of looking at market-focused community engagement. I don't know if y'all are familiar with design thinking, but I'm a big design thinker, and I like to see my world through design. And I'm a big believer in focusing what I do in marketing on that user group, that patron base that we were just talking about. So to start, you truly need to identify who your users are. And then you need to have empathy with them. What is their perspectives? What are they using? What are things that they have problems and concerns with? Gaining empathy can often, it helps if you can pull up iPad's data, demographic data from the US Census. Pull those pieces of information, be that librarian that we all are, and find out about your users and be able to build out, this is who our user is. Within our county, we have this many people who are in this age range. So if they're in this age range and they have this kind of educational background, these might be things that we could do to help provide them the support they need in what they're doing. But looking at that background of who is attending and using your facilities and spaces, asking for feedback. Don't hesitate at the end of a transaction at the desk to say, how are we doing? Did you find everything today? But gaining that empathy is really important if you want to understand how to market to that group. Additionally, ask those how might we's. We often ask each other questions, but different ways of asking questions can produce different results. And how might we is a really good way to spark creativity and to spark deeper thinking. How might we find ways to better help children in the library? How might we reach out to parents so they know what we have available to them in the library? How might we engage students in regards to this collection or this new tool we have for the library? Asking that how might we is a problem solver. In addition, set some goals and know, these are our goals for our library. These are our goals for the year. These are the things we want to get done. Pull those from your strategic plan, from your mission, which we're going to get into in just a minute. And then our messaging. What are the ways that we're messaging our students? What do they see in our messaging? When they walk into the library, what is the first thing they captures their eye? Is it the Starbucks they see as they step in? Is it the bulletin board that is clobbered and signage? Do we have something that's welcoming? Do we recognize that we're so glad they're here? But when they walk in, we're sight blind, right? This is our library. We're used to seeing these things. But when they walk in, this is their first time to experience the library. This is their first time to see this facility. Maybe it's their 15th time, but still every time should be an incredibly welcoming experience. So knowing the messaging when they enter our library facility as well as our website is already a tool that helps promote who you are, and it's already helping self-market you. These are those things that I had mentioned. We're going to keep moving. So in thinking about those elements that need to be considered by your team, have your team meet. Have them visit about those elements. Have them draw them out to think about them, to truly engage in a conversation. Additionally, to build out a strategic, a very wise and encompassing marketing plan, I always recommend, and one of the things that I like to do as a consultant is to employ a SWOT analysis. I don't know how familiar you guys are with a SWOT analysis. I will kind of go over it lightly. in case you're thinking, oh my word, yes, I know what it is. But to kind of just give you a good viewpoint, that Google Doc that I also shared with you has some very good information on SWOT analysis and how to employ it. So if you want to take a look at that later. But a SWOT analysis is going to give you a good scope and sequence for your library. I tend to run a SWOT analysis every 3 years for whatever library I'm working for. I also like employing them right before strategic planning, because I want to know what are my issues, but what are my strengths, and what can I build and praise upon, as well as what are the things that we need to workshop a little bit to improve. So the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are exactly how they're described by hearing the words themselves. But those strengths, what is helpful to us? What internally are we doing well? And then what are our weaknesses internally? What's harmful? What are we having problems with as a group? And then what are our opportunities? What are things that we can do outwardly? How can we engage groups? I recommend, especially when you start looking at opportunities and you start trying to think outward, consult Hardwood Innovators. They have some great guides for this. They have a public library workshop that's fabulous. If you get a chance to go check some of that out. Aspen Institute also has some great resources for libraries. It's available. They have things available on YouTube. IDEO also has some really great things. They also have a whole library section, as well as if you look at design thinking for libraries and you start looking at the outward, how to handle opportunities, how to look externally, there's some great resources there. Additionally, what are our threats? What are the things that are coming down the pike? What do we see 5 to 10 years from now? And I'll be honest with you, a lot of this has changed because of COVID, right? That one of our big things that most of us are probably looking at is funding. And where is our funding coming from? And what does our funding look like 5 to 10 years down the road? And how can I prepare programming? How can I prepare resources, human resources, as well as how do I ensure my patrons who come in, we're going to be as dynamic as we always have been. So creating that SWOT analysis, and I recommend sitting down and listing everything out exhaustively as a team, but also doing a walkthrough of your memories, creating a timeline, building out all the things that you have done. This is usually a great thing to do with a consultant. If you can bring someone in who can see it from the outside, either from a neighbor library, or someone that is within the community that can see and perceive who you are as a group. Taking that SWOT analysis and then doing some strategic thinking. I believe most of us in libraries have a strategic plan. And that strategic plan is something you get really excited about, you build it, you put it together, and then a lot of the time it sits on the shelf and it's just a thing you have. And then in a few years you look at it and go, oh yeah, we said we wanted to do this. Oh, hey, we did do this one. Yay us. But I'd like to say, one of the things that you might want to consider, especially when you are looking at truly engaging your community, is going from making a strategic plan to a strategic blueprint, a living document that lives and breathes with what you're doing. And in creating that blueprint, that you're then able to do some true goal setting, which is part of what we were looking at earlier. And you can take that SWOT analysis and you can have it motivate and create the drivers to move forward to truly understand who you are and unify your work around the mission. So in looking at the mission should immediately hint at who you are as an organization. What's valuable about your organization? What do we do? If you're an art library, obviously you're going to have things that pertain to that. If you are a public library, you're going to have a wide berth of mention of public services and age groups and demographics in your community. You know, your mission statement speaks outwardly, and it speaks upwardly to administration, to people who are your donors, that your advancement individuals. I think my librarians probably get tired of hearing this, but I constantly tell them, you know, does this pertain to mission? Is this a part of our mission? How does this meet our mission? Because our mission should be at the front and foremost of everything we do. So if we take those pieces of the SWOT analysis, of the strategic blueprint that we've now put together, of asking those how might we questions, and then putting it together with your mission statement, you now have a very functional focus of where you're going. And you have the tone that you need and the focus that you need to be able to then turn around and say, okay, now we're ready, and we know who our target audience is, and we know who we need to drive this to. What's next? And what's next is our next slide, which this was actually what I was saying. My apologies, y'all. So our next slide is stakeholders and collaborators. Now we need to develop our network. Any good marketing plan includes a well-developed network. It needs to include who is it that promotes us? Who in our community can we build relationships with that we can, you know, then promote and sparkle each other? One of the things that I loved about the small town I was in a few years ago is that the academic library, the public library, and some of the nonprofits in town self-promoted each other. There was a big health fair that the university would put on, and they put it on for the entire community. So the library was the intellectual wellness section of that health fair. And we would then get support from the public library. The public library would put on a health fair. We would attend it and help provide materials for that. They then came and helped provide materials for us. It helped bring in community collaborators. We blew our university away because our section of the fair included 4 different entities from within the community that were ready to engage our college students. And they then became marketers of our library, and they became a group that, oh yeah, you need to go to this library and check out what they're doing. Oh, you know what? I've heard they've got this great display going on, and they're doing these talks in the evenings. You need to go check this out. And so it became a means of community engagement. So understanding who your stakeholders are, it's incredibly important. So in addition to developing your networks, build relationships with advocates and donors. Donors can be really intimidating to visit with. Donors can be really hard to have that point of bravery to say, I'm going to go talk to them, and I'm going to talk to them about money, because money is taboo. But building those relationships, making sure that they're receiving information about your library, even if it's a yearly statistical report in addition to a Friends of the Library newsletter, sending them social media blintzes, making them aware of what's going on. That is so important, because they are your biggest cheerleaders, and they're going to then in turn send that information outward. Look at this library and what they're doing. This is why I promote them. This is why I support them. And this is why I'm giving them the funds that they can keep doing these things. We recently at Campbell finished a crowdfunding campaign, and that crowdfunding campaign was completely done by social media marketing. That was it. That's how we did it. And it was that social media marketing of people sharing our post and sharing our post and sharing our post, because we built these stakeholders that provided the avenue for it to be successful. So in addition to building with your advocates and donors, find groups with similar missions and backgrounds. As an academic, the best collaborator group that I can have on this campus is student success. And in addition to the faculty, don't get me wrong, faculty are important, but student success, career services, residential life, they are all looking at ways to address user need. And oddly enough, they all have mission statements and they all have value statements that align so closely to the library. It's a good complement, and finding programming that you can do with them, they're on the heartbeat of the students and they are in the trenches with the students in a way that builds a relationship that the librarian doesn't have. And so they can then become your marketing promoter. To be outward and mission focused in your practice, we've covered that. Proactive, not reactive. We are very good at being reactive as a group. We often go, okay, let's pass out these pins at this event. Let's send out these flyers. I can tell you, in certain communities, I know exactly what the library is doing by just going into the local grocery store and seeing all the flyers there. However, being proactive means that you are finding ways that your user group, what the census is telling you, what iPads is telling you, what your data is telling you, is the way to proactively engage your audience and to get them to become promoters for you. So thinking on that, we're on slide 10. And this is a point where we can then name potential collaborators in your community. I've named quite a few, but if you have groups that you feel like would be a great opportunity for you to collaborate, maybe a group that you've worked with in the past, maybe a group that you'd like to work with in the future, let's list those out.
Hey, so we have a question. Anita is asking if you could repeat some of the collaborative groups on campus.
Okay. Student affairs, in general, student life, student success, working with career services, residential life. Those are all really good groups to align with. They are all student-focused groups. They're going to look at everything a little bit differently than faculty, but they are so similar in what they're trying to do, because their goal is to take care of students. And they are completely focused on students, just like how we're driving our work to help improve the academic quality and the research capabilities of our students. They have similar goals. I can't emphasize enough the value of creating those connections on your campus. And then when you create and develop those, create programming that benefits both groups, because then they become your marketers and they become your promoters, and they're involved with students. And most of their marketing is done by students. So they're immediately, they know that niche and they know that group well, and they're going to be able to reach in ways that you may not be able to. Okay, we've got some answers here. Indie bookstores, I like that. That's awesome. Local authors, yes. It's always good if you can build those connections with a local author. Small business center, continuing education, yes. VA groups, that's a really good collaborator. Getting connected with ROTC groups on college campuses is also good. One of my favorite things that I did when I worked on a museum board is we did some programming for scouting groups in connection with the VFW. And we were able to bring veterans out to talk to the children and to talk to them one-on-one and be able to ask questions. And in doing that and bringing those scout groups out, then all of a sudden my museum had this huge base of people who hadn't been there before. And then they were saying, oh, we really need to check this place out. Look how great this is. Why haven't we been here? The same thing works in a public library, creating that programming with those kind of groups who maybe aren't the most library, strong users. All of a sudden, you now have this group who sees you as someone who cares about who you are and what you're doing, and then becomes a promoter for your library as well. Athletics, yes, that's a big one. Athletics can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge, but if you can get them to work with you and collaborate with you, that's fabulous. Let's see, local businesses, absolutely. Local authors, there's some good ones here. Literacy organizations, yes. Library science, yeah. If you can get an MLS student to come in, they're also going to have some ideas and some perspectives that that'll be completely different than what you might have, just for the fact that they're a little bit closer to remembering what it was like to be the person entering the library and having those first time library experiences. This is good. Okay. So final considerations. How do I bring this together? How, the big question is, we have reviewed all the things we need to bring together as a leader. We have reviewed all the different pieces that are needed to create a successful marketing plan. We've looked at who our stakeholders are. We've looked at who our audience is. We looked at who we could collaborate with to potentially elevate who we are as marketing. But the actual boots on the ground, creating a marketing plan, how do we do that? You need to have a good understanding of what your environment is. If you are a library that can't use social media, then you immediately have knocked something out. But if not, when you start building out your marketing plan, include what those elements are that are in your environment. What are those ways that you're reaching out to your audience? Are you using social media? Are you using flyers? Have you built an email network? And if you haven't done those things, can you do those things? And what are some of those tools that are useful to that? Take a look at that Google Doc. There's quite a bit there that can kind of help launch this. Additionally, there's also some worksheets there that can kind of run you through this exercise. Operational goals. So if I've got these operational goals and these are the ways that I can reach people, how do I complete this goal by using these tools? Build your connections. Objectives and accomplishments. Know what your goal is, your end game. What is it that you want to hit on, and how do you accomplish that? And showcase your accomplishments. If you've done something great, if you've got a librarian who's won an award, won a certificate, won notoriety, has attended a leadership institute, attended a conference, anything that looks like a good promotion, write it up. Send it to your university's marketing group. Send it to the local newspaper. Send it anywhere and everywhere you can, and get those groups constantly thinking about, what is the library doing now? What are their amazing people doing today? Oh, another one got another award. Man, we have an awesome library. That also opens the door to your marketing campaigns and promotions. Understand your perceptions that are out there. What is your audience perceiving of you? And how do you respond to that audience? How do you handle customer complaints? Can speak a lot to who you are and can be a marketing driver, whether positive or negative. How many of us have seen Google, reviews of restaurants and gone, maybe I won't go there? Or for hotels, I don't think there's a hotel I don't look at on hotels.com to see what the reviews are. That speaks volume in a marketing situation for your library. So understanding how you're handling those things in the library is a marketing audience that you may not realize is there and is underlying Positioning statements. How do you position yourself in the greater academic community? I'm going to pick on academics with this one. Where do you see yourself in the university? Are you at the center of the university? And how do you state who you are to the university? And it's important to recognize that all of these things are going to play into your building out your marketing plan. At this point, I've got some questions here that I'm going to read through. I know that I have given you a huge scope and sequence. I've given you a laundry list of things to do if you haven't done any of these things. And so I want to answer some of the questions I received here, answer some through chat. There is no practical sense in building out a marketing plan except for receiving the tools and understanding what tools you need, understanding what all influences marketing. And then I'm hoping with having this information that I've given you today, you can then take it, look at what's in the Google Doc and start putting pen to paper on writing out your marketing plan. That these influences, these things, doing these tools, following these techniques can then help you begin building out those marketing plan steps. So there was some questions that were sent to that pre-survey. One of them says, coordinating between programming librarians and marketing team members is really challenging. Do you have strategies or tips? Put them together. Have them meet before each semester. I like to have moments where in the summer we do some kind of retreat or some kind of build out where we start building the calendar. Some librarians go, oh, we have to build the calendar again. However, building out that calendar as a group and having all the unit leaders in one room say, these are the things we're doing for this library. These are the things we're doing for this library. These are the things that we're going to do for outreach. And my marketing team is sitting right there recording everything down and listening to it, then creates that opportunity where the marketing team can then see the entire calendar for the semester. We do it a semester at a time because, you know, it's hard to plan further than 6 months and sometimes in academics. And so then they can see it and go, okay, so if we start promoting this one here and this one here, they won't overlap with each other. And we'll need to do a blitz on this one by slowly getting people prepared for this big event. And to prepare for this big event, we're going to advertise it at these other events that are going on across the libraries. And so having them in a room together where they can visit means a huge shift in how they perceive and think with each other. So hopefully that makes sense and answers your question. How to brand ourselves in different ways to reach diverse audiences. That can be hard. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. I think what you need to do is have a universal branding, not a different brand for different audiences, because then you're playing to different audience types, which might cause some upset. You should be able to have one brand, this is who we are, that encompasses a outlook that reaches everyone. It's important that you unify your brand, that when someone sees X, like Coca-Cola is a good example. And I keep talking to over here because that's where y'all are and I need to talk this way. Coca-Cola is a good example. We all know that label and we all know, I've got Pepsi sitting here. Yeah, I'm a bad person. I have Pepsi sitting here. I know that label. I know as soon as I see it, I know what it is. That's the same way with our libraries, that they should be able to see who we are and immediately know what all we stand for. And that's all done by looking at these stakeholders, looking at these collaborators, looking at who our audience is, and making sure our mission statement, our blueprint for strategic thinking, all align to those groups. I know that's a lot, but that's my best recommendation there. And if y'all have questions, feel free to pop them up here. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. So that way we can all kind of see each other if you choose. I'm volunteering to work with NCLA's Literacy Section Facebook page. I want to successfully make this platform for literacy initiatives in North Carolina so librarians can learn from one another. Okay, so I'm assuming this person who said they want to make this platform for literacy initiatives, they wanted to know some kind of best practices. I think one of the best things you can do if you're looking at building out a social media account that's pushing out your ideals, you might want to build a team of collaborators, find maybe one or two other people who can work with you on putting this together, and potentially create a group where you can have a community. Don't just think creating this one page is going to do it, but look at the different ways you can use Facebook and find how that reaches your audience best. Let's see. Do you have an example you can share of what a marketing plan looks like? Yes. In fact, there are a few in that Google Doc. Let's see. I will add I think I've got blueprints, but I don't have actual examples because I didn't think, I just assume, sorry. I will put some examples in that Google Doc after we're done. I've got them in another document. Marketing plans, depending on what type of library you are, is going to look like something a little bit different, but it's going to follow a similar flow and function as to what we typically see in our strategic plans, where we're going to have these are the things that we're focusing in on, and this is how we're going to employ those tactics. So I'll add those examples. Oh, small academic. Okay, good deal. In fact, I was from a small academic, so I actually have a close to home example that I can throw on there. So good deal. So some of the other questions that we have here: what works best to get the most impact for faculty and students? That depends on you, and it depends on your library and your university. If you are a residential focused campus, you might want to talk to Student Life and say, hey, I've got these you know, little slips of paper that I'd like to put on everybody's doors. Or, you know, if you are a commuter campus, it might be that you need to send out, you know, some kind of email blitz. It really kind of depends on what kind of library situation you're in with your campus. I can tell you from my practices of both working in community colleges and academics, at a community college where it's commuter focused, I did a lot of personal interactions with faculty. Faculty don't always see librarians, and a lot of community college faculty are adjuncts. So the more that you can be personal with them, the greater impact that is. And your faculty on those campuses tend to be the faculty who then promote you and promote what you're doing in your programming and become big champions for you in the classroom, which is the one place you know for sure marketing is going to be successful, because the students are going to listen to their faculty member because they want to do well in that class. So hopefully that kind of helps. I have so much to promote. How do I keep from overwhelming our patrons with news? You have to think strategically about things. If you're doing a promotion for teens, you may want to focus it on TikTok and Instagram. If you're doing adult programming, you may want to focus that on Facebook, but know what social media platform you are using has a specific audience and making sure those line up well. But also you may want to choose, okay, there's 5 different events going on in the library this week. Okay, so we're going to really focus on this one on the door because this is our big ticket. And then as people come in, we're going to let them know about some of the smaller ones. You know, striking that balance and having that marketing team helps you conceptualize where those balances need to be.
We have a question from the chat that says, do you have any advice on good ways to market something like a makerspace in tandem with normal academic library materials?
Yes. So and it is advice, so take it for what it is. A lot of times what we have done is put out physical examples of things that have been done in the makerspace. We did a display cabinet as you walk into the library with a couple of fun and funky things that were made in the makerspace. And we just put a teaser sign with it, care to, I think it was something like make it so. I think we had Captain Picard perhaps at it. And we put where you can find this, and it became a thing on campus. There was a few jokes made that were a little nerdy, but that's okay. We'll take it. Corny works. And but doing different ways of kind of teasing out where that is, what it is, and what you're doing is helpful. But also employing some kind of alliteration, Maker Mondays. The university I'm currently working at, I had nothing to do with it. They developed an idea called Maker Mondays. And on Mondays, if you went up to the maker space, there was a project there ready for you that you could do. And it was a relaxing opportunity for them to take off the academic hat and put on, that fun creative hat. And students want that. What are ways you can suggest for branding events when the college has one color approach and you can't identify so you can't identify your event by layout or color? So you have to use, so the library Gloria, I need a little, a little more detail there.
One college approach, so they develop templates with such color schemes, things of that nature. At one time, we could even put our name on things, like giveaways and stuff. But now it just has to be the college names. You can't identify your department. You can't put your name on your T-shirts or anything like that. We've decided to use a certain color, but then now anybody can use that color. It just doesn't identify with you. So I'm trying to figure out, are there any other ways that people have found to do to identify you? When you were saying there are certain things you want a certain look or whatever that says when they look at that, they know it's you. And that's what I was trying to do prior to that, is developing a certain look so that when students saw something, they knew it was a library event.
Are you allowed to have like a symbol that is just your symbol?
No. We had a logo. Prior to this, we had a logo, but we had to disband all of that with the new one college concept.
Gotcha. Tina, it looks like you were about to say something. Do you have an idea for Gloria? Maybe not.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry, something happened to my speaker. I was going to say we had the same problem, and what we were allowed to do was take our existing community college logo and have our, our PR department add just Holt Library, the name of our library, as like a tagline under the logo, and use specific, college approved colors, so that we were not really having a different logo, but we have attached our name to the existing logo. So maybe they'd let you do something like that, because we had the same problem, and I was like, well, what are we supposed to put on things? I mean,
no, they won't even allow us to put our departmental name under it. If our name appears like on any giveaways, like shirts and stuff, it has to be on the back. It can't be associated with the logo.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you can't even put the name on the logo.
No,
even if you use the
no.
Okay, well, sorry.
Is it possible, Gloria, that maybe you drive some of your marketing into social media, and then maybe into more intimate communication? Crafting a heartfelt letter to your donors with your signature and who you are, on letterhead coming from your office, that might help. Doing greeting cards with I know you're going to have to put that logo on front, that's the university logo, but maybe inside include something intimate about your library, like pictures of students studying or your staff taking a photo together, or, you know, finding ways to then, you know, turn that trifold or, you know, that pamphlet or the things that you're doing from being just something that has straight up the school's information to inside having something that's enriching. That might be helpful, but that's a really tough situation.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really tough. Are there any other questions? I am going to add a few more examples and some more information to that Google Doc. Feel free to use any of that information that's there. It's there for you guys to peruse and use. And Devin, I think this about, unless there's other questions, about wraps it up for me.
I think we had one question that was in the Google form that asked, what are rules and best policies for taking pictures of patrons or students during events
That's
on social media? I think also what would go into that is like examples of student work, like work from the makerspace or things that were created at events.
I would definitely talk to your marketing communication team and ask if they have releases for photos. Some universities have them sign a release upon stepping onto campus. Some universities do it on a case-by-case basis, but find out what the protocol is. If you're a public library, you probably need to have a release that's been approved by your city or whoever oversees your library that you can then hand out and ask, do you mind if I take your picture, or, you know, are you willing to be seen at this program? If you're going to do like a full out media blitz about a, you know, a festival that's going on at your library or a outdoor event, you may just want to post a few notices saying, hey, you know, photographs will be taken. If you would like if you have a reason why you can't be in a photograph or your child can't be in a photograph, please let us know so we can make sure that we don't include you. That's often a good practice for that. Additionally, you know, I like to follow the 3/4 rule. And I tend to try to hit profiles of students. You know, if you are only showing 3/4 of their face, which isn't a lot, that still gives the semblance to that donor, that alumni, whoever it is that's going to see that item. You know, you've got students studying, working hard down at their desk, and you're still seeing that engagement of them within the environment. If your university is completely limiting you on what you can show. But having those releases is helpful. Generally, I have all my student workers fill out a photo release, and they become all the people who pose in my pictures. They enjoy it because they get to be celebrities, and because they work for the library and they want to promote the library, they then share those photos with their friends. Look, I'm on Facebook on the library's page, woo! And all of a sudden now you've got, you know, additional promotions going on that are worth more than their weight in gold.
Hey, to follow up with that, because that brought up a really good question for me, is how do you work with student workers to help them become part of the library's marketing or take ownership in some way?
You want them to take ownership of the library. One of the things that I like to do is do a boot camp to get them engaged in what we're doing in the library, but it's a fun one. And while it has training tools and materials, but it also has fun and engaging games, they get to know who they're going to be working with. Typically as a dean, I stay away from these to make sure that they're fun. But I'll go to the beginning and I'll tell them, I'm like, this is your library, and when you're here, you're me, and you are my voice, and you are given my authority. You're a representative of the university, you're a representative of the library, and that weight is such a great honor, because I want them to acknowledge the full value and importance of who they are in the organization and have them feel that importance. And in having them feel that importance, they start to gain that pride, and we show them their library pride. We hand them typically a t-shirt with the library, you know, logo on it, something cute and funny on it about the library. But we integrate them into the library committee, just like they're a staff member or a librarian that's in that library. And in doing so, that gives them the opportunity to become owners of the library.
All right. Do we have any final questions from folks? If not, then we can kind of go into housekeeping. Thank you so much, Alexia, for your time and this presentation and this incredibly comprehensive resource list that you put together. It's just, yeah, it's the most comprehensive library marketing list that I think I've ever seen. But for this afternoon, once the recording is, I'm gonna pause it real quick.